Welcome, brothers and sisters, to our Lenten journey with the saints, day 17. Today's spiritual guide will be Saint Ignatius of Loyola. He says, "The workers in the Lord's vineyard should stand on the ground on one foot, and the other one they should hold up, and ready to depart on a journey." Standing on one foot. What does Saint Ignatius mean? Have you ever seen the official military parades, very solemn, when the soldiers are walking slowly, solemnly, lifting their legs and marching on? That's the image that came to my mind the very first time I read St. Ignatius's phrase. It shows a reality that the workers in the Lord's vineyard should be ready to take off, to be on the go, to move in a mission that the Lord will assign to them. For St. Ignatius, the will of God was of utmost importance. That was the path to holiness. Continually asking, how can I fulfill God's will, and what I do will be for His glory? Maybe having those 2 feet down on the ground show that we are stuck in a state of stagnation. We got lazy, we don't want to move, we're locked in our old habits, maybe even bad habits, not willing to change, stuck in our rigid schemes, in our ideas, and oftentimes we would say either my way or the highway. And the people choose a highway, or we get offended and we choose the highway. We don't want to play because it needs to follow my schemes, my way of moving forward. Oftentimes we can be very stiff-necked and stubborn in our approach with those 2 feet down. And the Lord could be calling us to supersede, to move forward to a new level, to follow His will in the area that we are not familiar with and we don't want to move. I'm always amazed by the people who exhibit the spirit of open willingness to move. When the Lord calls them, when let's say someone asks them for a favor, when a person requests something, when their plans change, they easily adjust, they are flexible, they are not stuck in their own ways, throwing a fit because life doesn't go the way they expected. They adjust. They see that in the change of plans that takes place, it might be a sickness, an emergency call, or a friend who calls to have a conversation. There are many different circumstances that we are called to adjust. Basically, not stuck in one's own place saying, I'm not moving out from here because it should go the way I want and I demand. Don't you think that this attitude of having those 2 feet down prevented many people from moving forward? For instance, they never took off on this journey St. Ignatius speaks about, because to be ready when the Lord calls and tells us, now move forward, I'm inviting you to a new level, to grow spiritually, to leave behind one set of schemes or ideas that maybe at certain stage they were good, but now a new time begins. I saw it clearly in my personal life when it comes to prayer. The Lord gave me some ways of praying through a specific period of time that was needed for my healing, for my support in that moment of my life. Later on, He brought me to a different level, and I couldn't go back to where I used to be in terms of resuming some other prayers, because He told me, I would like you to move forward, and now this is the area where I would like you to be. Let us ask ourselves today, are there any areas of our lives where we are stuck in those 2 feet down, almost like screwed down? No one can take us out of our old habits, old ideas, old ways of doing things. Many times you could hear in the parishes, we have always done it this way. We have always had this or that practice. We have, etc. We've always done that way. How about if God invites you to take a different tangent, to embrace something new? That's the path of many saints, a novelty. What St. John Paul II called the pastoral creativity, an ability to adjust and to open one's own self to a new way of doing things. But that requires humility and ability to be taught and inspired by the Lord, and having this 1 foot up, ready to move on a journey. This journey can take very different ramifications and forms that God might have for us. Let us not be afraid. Let us ask God to be ready to move on. Lord, unscrew me, if I may use this term, from my old ways and habits, sometimes bad habits, bad company I might be involved in. Let me be ready that when you call, through a friend, when I read a book, through this inspiration, through a homily, through a reflection, variety of different ways God can be talking to us. Lord, help me to get on a journey, not being stuck in my old ways. Brothers and sisters, today's task is, number 1, to evaluate our lives if we don't happen to be stuck in our old habits, our old ways that we don't want to abandon and to leave behind. And maybe we are uncomfortable, we are suffering, and other people are suffering because of our stubbornness. That's a task number 1. Number 2, where do you think God can be calling you to move on? What journey might He be inviting you during the season of Lent to move forward, embracing a new path? Let us pray and ask the Lord with St. Ignatius of Loyola that He may give us a zeal, openness, starting from simple things like serving someone, reaching out to a person when he or she calls us, and then moving to more elaborate tasks, as if changing our prayer life or going to a retreat, and many different ways that God can be calling to. As St. Ignatius of Loyola is teaching us today, that the worker in the Lord's vineyard should be on the ground only with 1 foot, the other one holding up, ready to take off on a journey that He is calling us to. God bless you, brothers and sisters, as we continue our Lenten journey with the saints.